the death toll likely would not have been as high if it wasn't for DEI.
It looks like the MAGA marching orders have been disseminated as all the conservative mouthpieces responsible for spreading misinformation have finally converged on one narrative. Despite railing against the Democrats for politicizing the natural disaster.
And we've got to be human beings, Kellyanne. Not everything has to be political.
It seems like the Republicans are finally ready to lay the blame at one person's feet. One man who is responsible for the devastating, preventable loss of life in Texas. The Black Fire Chief of Austin, Texas. If this is not obviously a disgusting lie on its face, don't worry. I spent some time breaking down this accusation, and like an episode of Scooby-Doo, the culprit is an old adversary of ours: racism.
What you are not being told by the media anywhere is that the death toll likely would not have been as high if it wasn't for DEI. Pressure was on the city to prove its diversity credentials. So a few years later, they picked Joel Baker as their first black fire chief. He announced right away that promoting diversity is one of his top priorities. They brought him in from Atlanta, and his priority was not putting out fires or being prepared for floods. No, his priority was to make sure that the fire department was blacker. But when you hire people based on race, you're not hiring based on skill. So right now, Baker is facing a vote of no confidence by his union for, this is the key, for denying the pre-deployment of resources to Kerrville, Texas. Now, Kerrville is in Texas Hill Country, which is west of Austin. Austin has a monster fire department, and so his union, they wanted to pre-deploy resources to Kerrville, Texas. But Baker apparently didn't act because of budgetary concerns. Well, the only problem, the Austin Fire Department is fully reimbursed by the state of Texas for such deployments. They tried explaining this to him, but he didn't quite comprehend the idea of reimbursement. I don't think he knew the word reimbursement. They sat down, they said, sir, this will be reimbursed. And according to reports he didn't understand it. The head of the Austin Fire Union, this is not me making up, said, quote, I explained the reimbursement process to Chief Baker last week, and he failed to understand this very simple concept. You see, when you hire fire chiefs based on diversity, you get morons. You don't get smart people. Austin hired a DEI fire chief who could have saved an untold number of lives, but was unable to comprehend the simple concept of reimbursement. How many people unnecessarily died because of DEI? Well, you could rest easy because they say diversity is our strength. And now those little girls are dead. Those families are without their daughters. But hey, you have a black fire chief in Austin. You should be happy about that.
It is so funny to me that he is squeezing in DEI fire chief as often as possible. It's so clear that these people have just replaced the N-word, and I'm not talking about nuclear, with DEI. And so they revel in saying it as much as possible. This accusation comes from the fire union president, the Austin Firefighters Association, who is claiming that the current fire chief of Austin refused to pre-deploy a rescue team because he didn't understand that he'd be reimbursed by the state. Now, there's a couple of things wrong with that statement. The first being that no one, including the all-powerful fire chief of Austin, knew that there was going to be historic flooding. The pre-deployment that was allegedly declined was part of a Texas infrastructure fire mutual aid system, so it's a routine process that wasn't specific to the historic flooding. Now, the reason why Austin decided not to involve themselves in this mutual aid system anymore is because of budgetary restrictions. The entire city of Austin is currently facing a $33 million deficit, and the fire department has been asked to pinch pennies. In addition to being asked to try to save money, AFD suspended deployments, according to the division chief Andre Jordan, because of a budget shortfall and because the state has something like $800 $300,000 in outstanding reimbursements that haven't yet been paid back to the city. So despite Charlie Kirk saying that the fire chief just doesn't understand the concept of reimbursement because he's a stupid black man, it turns out that actually the state of Texas already owes them nearly $1 million and they're refusing to pay out. So they're being told to save money right now. They probably weren't going to get paid back from the state. And the same storm that hit Kerrville was expected to hit Austin. So for all of those reasons, the fire chief decided not to participate in the mutual aid program and keep his firefighters in the Austin area. Of course, it's easier for Charlie Kirk and his gang of little racist rascals to believe that a man who's capable of becoming fire chief of one of the biggest fire departments in the country somehow doesn't understand what reimbursement is. Now, the original accuser here is the Austin Firefighters Association president, Bob Nix, who has a history of being a bit racially diversive himself. In 2012, the federal government determined that the Austin Firefighter Association under Bob Hicks was guilty of racial discrimination in their cadet hiring practices. Then, in 2014, after it looked like the city of Austin was going to lose this suit, he organized 300 members of his union to go show up and argue that the black and Hispanic would-be cadets who were discriminated against don't deserve a settlement from the city. Now, he himself, Bob Nix, did not say anything about the current Austin fire chief being a DEI hire, but something tells me that he feels very similar to how Charlie Kirk does. But luckily, there's another Kirk in this situation, Mayor Kirk Watson of Austin, who put out a statement disparaging Bob Nix's accusation. He said, "I'm very disappointed in Bob. In this awful time, he shouldn't be politicizing this horrible loss by making it part of budget negotiations and the collective bargaining with the union. Unlike Bob, I actually talked to Chief Nim Kidd, the chief of the Texas Division of Emergency Management, over the weekend. In one of our talks, I asked Chief Kidd if he was getting all he needed from Austin and if there was anything else he needed. He characterized Austin's response as above and beyond. I'm proud of our public safety professionals. They are heroic. They are ready to help elsewhere, and they are ready to help us here at home, and I support our fire chief." And look at these morons in the responses. MAGA in Austin says, also the city gets reimbursed from the state. Just unreal. You let those babies die. God knows. Holy crap, these people are unhinged. Go fuck yourself. Austin policies have turned ATX into a shithole, and that's why we left and took our tax dollars with us. Dude, if you no longer live in Austin, why are you trolling the mayor's comments? If you guys like it when we call out these MAGA losers for trying to push this crap and want to stay informed on everything they don't want you to know, subscribe to Really American. I mean, I shouldn't be surprised that they're trying to blame these floods on black people, but I mean, what did I expect? It's just so ridiculous how they're trying to do it. A black fire chief of a city 2 hours away from the tragedy is somehow responsible because he didn't understand what reimbursement is? Just so blatantly racist. But of course, that's probably why the MAGAs are jumping on this narrative like flies on shit. I'm Tony Hinderman. I'm Tony Hinderman with Really American, and I'll catch you next time.